Let's move on now. The G20 Summit in New Delhi has concluded. Despite all odds, a joint statement has been issued and 112 outcomes were reached. But there were two key moments that also grabbed attention at the summit sidelines. And both chronicle US President Joe Biden's positioning in the global south. They say one man's loss is another man's gain. Truer words could not have been spoken for Joe Biden at the G20. With Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian leader Vladimir Putin missing from this crucial meet, the stage was set for Washington to make haste and capitalize on this opportunity. Xi's presence at the summit would have been a prime opportunity for many Western leaders, including Biden, to break the ice. But even without the Asian superpower's head in attendance, the show went on.
President Biden, has President Xi's absence impacted the summit?
It would have been nice to have him here, but not always. Excellency.
Now take a look at these visuals from day one of the summit. US President Joe Biden, accompanied by World Bank President Ajay Banga, was pictured with India's Prime Minister and G20 host Narendra Modi, Brazil's President Luiz Lula da Silva and South Africa's leader Cyril Ramaphosa. One might call it a group handshake between Biden and the BRICS leaders, minus Russia and China, of course. Remember how just a few days ago the BRICS summit in Johannesburg was being touted as China's bid to establish the bloc as a counterweight to the West G7 alliance. But the tables seem to have turned in New Delhi this weekend, as Xi's absence at G20 may have been China's snub to India's presidency, but the move has done more damage than good for Beijing at this mega diplomacy event. Washington's efforts to cement its position in the global south does not end here. The US separately announced a major transcontinental rail and shipping corridor. The agreement involves India, the European Union, Saudi Arabia, Israel and other West Asian nations.
As a key part of this corridor, we're going to invest in ships and rail that extends from India all the way to Europe, connected by the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. Bridging ports across two continents, unlocking endless opportunities, including making it far easier to trade, export clean energy.
The project is an ambitious one, much like China's Belt and Road Initiative. Officials at the summit have said that the corridor would provide an alternative to Beijing's infrastructure program. The move also reflects well on Biden's actions in conflict-ridden West Asia and moves beyond the West's lip service on the humanitarian crisis.
טוב לכם, אזרחי ישראל. הערב אני שמח לבשר לכם בשורה גדולה. ישראל נמצאת במוקד של פרויקט בינלאומי חסר תקדים, פרויקט שיחבר תשתיות בין אסיה לאירופה. החיבור הזה יגשים חזון רב שנים, שישנה את פני המזרח התיכון, את פניה של ישראל, והוא גם ישפיע על העולם כולו. החזון הזה מתחיל בהודו, עובר דרך איחוד האמירויות, ערב הסעודית, ירדן, ישראל, ומגיע לאירופה.
These key developments come at a time when US-China ties have been at an all-time low for months now, marred by Beijing's aggressive military expansion in the Indo-Pacific. By shifting its focus on India, the US has seemingly found a counter to China's expansionism, given New Delhi's strengthened global positioning of late and the simmering border issues with Beijing. And to discuss this and a lot more, we are now being joined by our Voice of America correspondent Jessica Stone from our newsroom. Jessica, thanks for joining us. Now, given the announcement of multilateral projects at the recently concluded G20 and with Biden now in Vietnam, has the US found a way to counter China in the region?
I think it has found a new way to counter China in the region. At least this administration, of course, has had a bent towards multilateral approaches as opposed to bilateral approaches. You remember under the Trump administration, we saw a keen interest in shedding all of these international bodies and really just working on a bilateral basis. Well, we are back to a foreign policy under President Biden in the United States of a multilateral foreign policy. And it's been one where the United States has really learned that leveraging these multilateral institutions, and in particular bringing in the complaints and the concerns of the BRICS countries into the G20, is really reinvigorating the G20 construct to be more relevant to global concerns. It's not just a representation, of course, of the wealthiest economies around the world, but also increasingly through the addition and India's leadership of the African Union. So yes, I think that does give the U.S. a way to counter China insofar as the G20 and these Western nations, along with their global South partners, are now presenting viable options to the rest of the world, to the way China does business and does security.
Absolutely. Now, with the success of the G20 summit under India's presidency and New Delhi making it possible for a joint statement to be made despite all odds, has the US identified India as a fulcrum to forging new regional dynamics?
India is certainly playing a critical role here, and the U.S. has really sped up a warming of relations with India just over the last 2 or 3 years. A part of that is a result of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the reduction in need to depend on Pakistan. But, you know, for so many years, there has been a relationship of distrust between these two countries. The other factor, of course, is what China is doing and how India's economy and its market can be a solution for companies in the United States looking for markets and manufacturing hubs and other locations to work in globally. India is presenting an option for them that wasn't maybe as viable as it is now. And India as a fulcrum is also because of its policies of non-alignment. It has the position in its foreign policy to be able to make arguments to countries and outreaches to countries that the United States may have a little more difficulty reaching. And so these two countries together are definitely showing the world that they can accomplish things together in a way that they cannot do apart.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.